What's up, YouTube? Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Welcome to the channel. We got a lot going on tonight, and I'm going to be honest with you from the jump here. I always tell you I'm honest with you. I am exhausted. It's been a very long day. To be honest, I didn't think I would have time to squeeze in a show for you, but I am doing it now because we got some Pac-12 news, and I think it was worthy of a live show. I considered just doing a standalone video, and I was like, look, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just push through and do the live show. So I'm going to have to jump off pretty close to 9. So it might be a little bit shorter than what it typically is. But we're going to do this damn thing. All right. We're going to do this damn thing because that is how much I love bringing you Big 12 content. All right. Dedicated content creator right here. Let's make it happen. We can talk about an awesome slate of games. Week 5 in the Big 12 is going to be great. Headlined by Baylor and Oklahoma State. Rematch of the Big 12 championship game. I'm sure Oklahoma State has been waiting for this one to try and extract some revenge on Baylor for keeping them out of the college football playoff potentially last year and obviously denying them a Big 12 championship. But there's intrigue across the league. K-State and Texas Tech playing on Big 12 now on ESPN+. But hey, that's a game with conference title implications early on here. Kansas gets a more legitimate test at Iowa State this week. Can Oklahoma rebound as they try to go to TCU? We got a lot to cover. But this story that came out today from CBS Sports, really interesting about the Pac-12, and not just because it once again reiterates that the conference is in jeopardy of total collapse, but because of one of the scenarios laid out about the conference searching for this big deal with Amazon. So Dennis Dodd reported some numbers. Andrew Marchand actually threw out some more numbers, who again is the sports media reporter that had said ESPN and the Pac-12 were hundreds of millions apart. He has said the same thing now about Fox and the Pac-12. So it was like a double dose of bad news for the Pac-12 in terms of reports today about their future and the TV contract. And then we got the perfect Stuart Mandel response as well. So I know you guys are all going to be waiting for that, to hear what Stu had to say. And it was on brand, very on brand, about in particular the Andrew Marchand report. So that's what we got today. I'm not quite as organized as I normally would be. There are a lot of little things that have happened that I think are great. The Big 12 now officially has a marketing department. They have hired a chief marketing officer, which is great to see and plays along with the narrative I've been telling you about for a long time, which is that the Big 12 is making much more of a push to market itself and be aggressive in that department under Brett Yormark than they were before. And frankly, it's pretty amazing. The Big 12 never had a chief marketing officer before, at least to my knowledge, maybe way back in the day. I'm not sure, but that underscores some of the problems the league did have. So I already see Calico Willie hopping in here. I'll get to that donation in just a moment. The chat is going to be pretty crowded tonight. So if you want to make your voice heard, if you want your question or comment to be read, you donate by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. And that is how you get your voice heard here on the show. It will cut through everything else. Pin your chat at the top for me if you do attach a donation to it. Not only are you controlling the content and letting yourself be heard here on the chat, but you're also supporting the work that I'm doing, bringing you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis here on the channel. And look, I appreciate everybody that does do that very much. Also, if you could like the video, that would help me out a lot. It's free, just one click, helps me with the algorithm, and is another way you can support the channel. And if you are watching this taped, not live, you can always support me on Venmo as well. It is John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, and that is much appreciated also. So let's get rolling. We've got a couple of donations in here already. We start with my guy, Calico Willie. What's up, Calico Willie? Calico Willie says, John, 9 a.m. National Player of the Week. Also love the Texas Tech dude who made the Predator pick for both our schools. I'm okay with K-State being Carl Weathers. There's been some fun back and forth between K-State and Texas Tech where there's like this mutual respect. I mean, there's no real like disrespect out there. So there's been like some half-hearted trash talk, although I'm hopping off later tonight to do the Gambling Gauchos podcast, which I love those guys. And you should definitely be following them on Twitter if you're not, if you're a Big 12 fan. But they tweeted out a little video with highlights of the 1998 Big 12 championship game, which is not cool at all. That is the one thing that has triggered me this week, Texas Tech. That is it. We're going to have a conversation about that. So stay tuned for the Gambling Gauchos podcast later this week. But It's been fun going back and forth with some of them. This is again like in a sea of, K-State just played Oklahoma, they played Mizzou earlier, they've got Iowa State next week, Kansas still at the back end of the schedule. All these schools, there's a lot of button heads going on. It's like Texas Tech here. I can't really be that mad at you. It's a shame one of us has to lose, but that's going to happen here on Saturday. And hey, 9 a.m., that of course being Adrian Martinez, National Player of the Week. Yeah, he got the Davey O'Brien National Player of the Week, I believe it was. Deserves it, man, for that performance. Hell of a performance at Oklahoma. 5 total touchdowns, best game of his career. He got a lot of national love. I know Kirk Herbstreit, for instance, had him in his group of best players from week 4 in college football. So well-deserved, and just could not be a better dude, and a dude who has taken so much crap throughout his college career at Nebraska and then early on in his K-State career. Just a very, very heavily criticized and harshly criticized player throughout his college career, and just a stand-up guy. So I am thrilled for him to get those honors. Now, just put it behind you and focus up on Texas Tech, because K-State got a lot of pats on the back after beating Missouri 40-12, and then came back and lost at home to Tulane and scored 10 points. So, yeah, you got to make sure you take care of business there. But I appreciate the love, Calico Willie, for 9 a.m. and Adrian Martinez, because it is well-deserved. K-Do, a Kansas fan here. I can tell by the logo. K-Do says Iowa State is a good litmus test for KU. This will definitely show whether KU is legit or not. Either way, this has been a stellar job by Leipold. I appreciate that take a lot, and I agree with it 100%. I think it is very much a litmus test. No offense to Houston or West Virginia, but I think Iowa State is a step above those two. It's like 2 steps above, maybe 3 steps above Duke. I think Duke is other than Tennessee Tech, Duke is by far the worst FBS opponent that Kansas has played so far this year. So that to me was actually like a fairly disappointing game in the way that Kansas played. I feel like they should have won the game by more. However, obviously the big picture is they're 4-0. They won a game where they had a sellout crowd at home. It's all great. I'm not trying to criticize the win, but I am very interested to see how that goes with Iowa State, because I'll be honest. I mean, I'm at a point now where look, man, respect. Kansas has earned the respect. Their offense looks phenomenal, and every time I keep thinking they're going to stub their toe and the defense will be so bad that it gets them in real trouble, it has not happened. And Iowa State certainly looked very flawed last week in their game against Baylor. So I don't know what to expect in that game, man. I don't know what to expect. Now, this SI thing coming out this week, putting the projection that put Kansas in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, holy hell, let's pump the brakes a little bit there. And Kansas fans, I mean, look, the basketball arrogance certainly transfers over to football arrogance pretty quickly. I'm hoping that I can get you guys. I told my buddy earlier, who was texting me the other day, he didn't really know much about Deuce Vaughn. I was like, look, let me just put together a college football since 2009 primer for Kansas fans. I'll get it out on the internet, and you guys can all read it and get up to speed on the last decade and a half of college football, and we'll all be on the same page and ready to go here. But look, I can't really trash talk the current team this year. They've been doing some great things. So yeah, very part of an incredibly intriguing week in the Big 12. No doubt about that. So I kid there, K-Do. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the question. And look, you guys don't need me or my opinion to juice you up right now. Kansas is getting all sorts of run nationally, and a lot of outrage that they didn't get ranked. So you got a lot of defenders in the college football world right now, which is a rare thing, obviously, for Kansas. All right, Zach, appreciate the donation. Zach says, it's your most favorite Cincy fan again. My question is this: even though they're currently unranked, I feel like my Bearcats are the number 1 contenders for the New Year's 6 group of 5 spot. Do you agree? If not, who is? I'm gonna have to go pull up the rankings here real quick. But I don't think that's a bad take. It's not something that I immediately reject. Not at all. I think they are in a good spot. I think Indiana was 3-0, kind of another Duke-ish sort of team, right? Probably overinflated there with that record, or just not as impressive as the record would indicate, but absolutely smashed them last week. Looking here, what do we got? Group of 5, I mean, I guess, yeah, if we're saying group of 5, and so BYU's out of that group, if we're not talking about BYU being an independent, I'm not really seeing it. There's no group of 5 action really in the Top 25, hardly at all, right? Cincinnati's leading the pack, and then you start going through receiving votes. James Madison, Tulane, somehow Tulane still getting votes. I guess the strength of K-State beating Oklahoma is helping carry the day there. But yeah, I think very much in the conversation, and I think a part of it is just like nobody was talking about Cincinnati this year because the assumption was just that there would be a massive drop off in losing Desmond Ritter and all the what was it 9 draft picks. Just a lot of guys off to the NFL. There were such huge personnel losses. Everybody just assumed they wouldn't really be a part of the conversation. And even within the league, I mean, there was more hype, it seemed like, preseason about Houston, which has obviously not played out very well so far this year. So I think Cincinnati is still flying under the radar a little bit. But in general, yeah, I think that there's every possibility that could happen, especially Cincinnati has the cachet built up from last year. And that I know Arkansas just lost in a really kind of fluky way on Saturday, but that Arkansas loss is nothing to hang your head about or be ashamed about. And I think by the end of the year, that's not going to look bad at all. So yeah, Zach, I agree, and I need to make it a point to watch some Cincinnati here pretty soon because I have not had an opportunity to really watch a ton of Cincinnati this year. Loved watching them last year, and they have my attention. Cincy has my attention for sure. So I hope to see them in a New Year's Six bowl. What an incredible boost to the conference that would be if Cincinnati is coming in off of college football playoff New Year's Six, bang, bang, back to back like that. So shout out, Zach. Shout out to the Bearcats. Shout out to Travis Kelce, although, he did drop a touchdown pass that kind of killed me on Sunday. So, let's get Kels back rolling. But one of my favorite football players of all time. Texas Tech fans, Cincinnati fans, providing me all kinds of football goodness with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Jake, great question here. Thank you for the donation. Says, is anything imminent with the Pac-12 demise, or is this report just keeping the narrative alive? What's new? Well, let's get to that report. And those of you that are still waiting with the donations, I promise you I will get to them in a second, but I'm going to use this as the jumping off point to talk about the Pac-12 story that we have here. I would say, to answer your question, is anything imminent or is this just keeping the narrative alive? I think it is much more keeping the narrative alive than it is imminent. But it's also like reporting basically saying, like, don't sleep on this. It's like this is still something being discussed and something that could happen. And the new part of it, what's new, I will tell you in just a moment. I think it's the angle that Dennis Dodd is coming at it from here. So this is a Dennis Dodd report from CBS Sports. He says the Big Ten's continued pursuit of 4 Pac-12 schools is leading to concern that another round of expansion could collapse the Pac-12, industry sources tell CBS Sports. This as Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren continues to seek an offer from Amazon or potentially another partner for additional Big Ten football media rights revenue. An offer deemed substantial enough would likely convince Big Ten presidents that California, Oregon, Stanford, and Washington would be valuable additions to the league from the Pac-12. That figure is believed to be less than $100 annually. If the Big Ten makes such a move, it would almost certainly increase the likelihood that the Big 12 is able to get some combination of Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah from the Pac-12, thus crushing the Pac-12 and hanging Oregon State and Washington State out to dry. Quote, if that Big Ten move happens, I think other schools will want to jump to our league, said a Big 12 source familiar with the situation. So actually, as I read this, I'm now realizing I had read this wrong a bit at first. But what is being said here is that Kevin Warren continues to seek an offer from Amazon for additional Big Ten football media rights revenue. That is a new piece to me because the earlier report was that Amazon had been passed on by the Big Ten because they were worried about visibility. But the piece of this that's interesting is if that is what is happening here and they're really seeking an offer from Amazon, that I think would be why Pac-12 interest would still be alive here. And Dodd kind of goes on to outline this later on in the article. But that is like, look, the Pac-12 right now is trying very hard to get a deal with Amazon currently, correct? So if they were to get a deal from Amazon and get a lot of value out of it, I would think the Big Ten would be looking at it. Or if they feel like the Pac-12 is about to get a deal with a lot of value to it, I would feel like that would be very attractive to Warren to be like, well, why don't we just go grab those schools, throw them in the Big Ten, we'll have extra inventory, then we open up Amazon, and now we've got the best of both worlds. We've got like the best streaming deals out there we could possibly get, and now we're going to throw it with the best like over-the-air network TV deals we could possibly get, and now we're going to mix that in with this great Amazon deal and these Pac-12 schools that we know have some value there, and we've seen that Amazon would be willing to overpay for them. So there's almost like a Jeopardy sort of situation here, like a catch-22 for George Kliavkoff. Like if things keep going well on the Amazon front and the Big Ten gets word of it, maybe that means that they're going to be more likely to try and hop back in to go after Cal, Oregon, Stanford, and Washington. So then you're like caught between a rock and a hard place in a way, right? Like the better that's going, which means you would have a deal that potentially those schools would all sign. The Big Ten now may be more interested, or you don't get that much interest and then you don't have a deal that anybody can sign. Now, that's me making a lot of assumptions there just based on this news. But really, the gist of the report here is that this is not over, and that industry sources continue to tell Dennis Dodd that the Pac-12 is in jeopardy of another round of expansion collapsing the conference. So it's not totally slowing down, basically, would be the idea there from Dennis Dodd. So there are a couple things here. I mean, I will admit there have been some Dennis Dodd reports throughout conference realignment that have been a little all over the board. I do not put this in the same category as like a Pete Thamel report, who I think is like tops right now in college football. So take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But it is yet another thing that is keeping that narrative alive. And even if that is all it is, it's not great. It's not great because the Pac-12 is now caught in the same thing that the Big 12 has been caught in for years and really like decades, frankly, which is just every story that comes out, every opinion that comes out seems to be pretty negative about the long-term future of the Pac-12. They can't escape fairly negative news cycles right now, which is a tough deal. That's a tough thing to get off your back as a conference, because now everybody is starting. It feels like some of the narrative nationally is starting to shift toward the Pac-12 much more being in a tough spot than the Big 12, which I know that sounds crazy. The Pac-12 obviously would not be the more stable of the two conferences because they've been rocked more recently. But the Big 12, I mean, there was a lot of stain there, a lot of stain left over from the reputation issues the Big 12 has had for a long time. And it feels like the Pac-12 is picking a lot of that up right now. And every week almost there's another story like this that kicks in that, yes, sends us through another news cycle where things do not appear to be very good for the Pac-12. So there is more. There is more to this. I'm going to kind of continue to read through that as I mix in some of your questions and comments here and your donations as we move forward. So next one up, Taco and Tech. Just did that podcast earlier this week. Shout out to Taco and Tech. Go check out the Taco and Tech podcast if you'd like to listen to me talk K-State and Texas Tech. Says John Kurtz, greater than BoJack Horseman. Thanks again for letting me interview you on my new channel, Guns Up. Hey, appreciate it. Very generous of you. Didn't have to do that, but I absolutely appreciate the love and was happy to do it, man. Happy to do it. The BoJack Horseman reference there, I told him to get after my guy Kellis, who covers K-State. Loves BoJack, so do I. But I said, like, if you're really trying to get under someone's skin, you would go to Kellis and tell him that BoJack Horseman sucks. That's a good way to do it. So shout out to Taco and Tech. Go check out that podcast, especially you Texas Tech fans. I know we got a lot of Texas Tech fans in here. Definitely go hit that up. What's up, Oliver? Oliver Crooms. Oliver, are you aware of any comments from Amazon on a Big Ten deal? Hashtag Go Cougs. Dana in hot water. Yeah, I can imagine Dana Holgerson is not having a real fun time this year. Almost losing to Rice on Saturday probably didn't help matters, although he did pull out a win. Are you aware of any comments from Amazon on a Big Ten deal? I am not. I have not seen any like public comments on that. But again, this story does mention that the Big Ten, Kevin Warren, continues to seek an offer from Amazon or potentially another partner for additional Big Ten football media rights revenue. So I guess they're not done, which was news to me. And maybe I've just missed that, but that was news to me that the Big Ten is not totally done with all this, even after their massive record TV deal. If you want another valuable piece of information from this story, how about this? Just continuing to read from Dodd's article. Industry chatter has Oregon State and Washington State moving to the Mountain West if the Pac-12 collapses. I think we kind of do that. At that point, the Mountain West would replace the Pac-12 as the largest FBS conference in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. Adding to the intrigue. So here we go. Adding to the intrigue. The Big Ten and Big 12 share the same media rights consultant, Endeavor, a global sports and entertainment company. CBS Sports reported last month Endeavor was advising the Big 12 about whether it should add Pac-12 programs. earlier this summer, CBS Sports reported the Big 12 was interested in the Four Corners program. So, all right, Big 10 and Big 12 share the same media rights consultants. And if you want to get conspiratorial, perhaps that is the outlet to do so. That there would be, it would behoove the consultants to link those two together, maybe. And we know also not only that, but Kevin Warren is pretty tight with Brett Yormark and has said very nice things about him. Really seems to respect him. So are the Big 10 and the Big 12 now in cahoots here to try and make this better for everybody? Because the idea there would be like, hey, if the Big 10 decides it'll help us get in the door with Amazon if we have the extra inventory to pull those 4 schools. And Amazon already seemed interested in those schools in the Pac-12. We'll pull them. Big 12, you guys get better with grabbing the 4 corner schools. You become best of the rest conference, or at least set yourselves up to really be best of the rest conference in college football after the SEC and the Big 10. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, kind of a situation here that could be playing out. And I know that does seem perhaps a little bit crazy, but I also feel like at this point in the conference realignment game, I'm not really going to call anything crazy. And we've seen actual alliances, or we've seen really fake alliances been thrown out there publicly when they're not real behind closed doors. Why couldn't we have one that is real behind closed doors, but we don't have much that's actually out there in front of everybody? And typically it's like, real gangsters move in silence. It's like the when the big stuff is happening, it's really happening in silence. Nobody's talking about it. There are not much in the way of reports about it. So there's just a lot to take in with this report, but it was very interesting and got people talking along these lines once again when Dodd put that out today. Our Web, what's up, Our Web? Our Web says Georgie's list of grenade lobbers: Marshawn, Dodd, Yormark, Warren, Orland. Better watch out for that butt kicking. LOL. Yeah. It's another grenade. That is true. That's a good way to frame it up, Our Web. Whoever asked, like, is this just pushing the narrative along, or is this something imminent? It's just another grenade, man. Just throw them. Another grenade. Another grenade headed to George Kliavkoff's office in the Pac-12. And what's funny about this is I didn't even get. You're mentioning Andrew Marchand there, Our Web. I haven't even gotten to the Marchand piece of this, which I'm going to skip through some of the Dennis Dodd reporting. There is more on that front, but Andrew Marchand, who Sports Business Journal, like great, or Marchand's a New York Post. I think Orand is the Sports Business Journal, but Marchand, a tremendous sports media reporter, like the authority on this that you'll see reporting throughout the year on anything sports media. He said Fox, like ESPN, is hundreds of millions of dollars apart from the Pac-12. So he was the one to report. It was a couple of weeks ago that ESPN and the Pac-12 were hundreds of millions of dollars apart. Now he is saying that Fox also hundreds of millions of dollars apart with the Pac-12, which really, that statement shouldn't be that shocking, because most of what we've seen reported from John Wilner and John Canzano, Pac-12 reporters out in the Pacific Northwest, or the West Coast, I guess I should say. They're not both Pacific Northwest. I digress. Pac-12 reports have all been Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. That everything is moving toward Amazon, and that the Pac-12 would be looking at a deal there. They don't really have the luxury like the Big Ten of being worried about what happens with distribution. They're going to have to just go through with it anyway. And Amazon would likely overpay. They would pay more just because they want subscriptions. They want people to be using their system and get them to buy more of their products, more of their daily needs through Amazon. And so they'll overpay for the football just to get more people in the door. It's basically the concept there. And even when we got the Thursday Night Football viewership numbers from the Thursday Night Football debut on Amazon Prime the other day with Chiefs and Chargers, that was really being hyped up by the John Wilners of the world. Is like, hey, look, these numbers are pretty good. That's better news for the Pac-12 trying to get involved here with Amazon. So that all the momentum's been flowing that way, which would make you think, obviously, that things are not going that well on the front of ESPN and Fox, like the traditional route. Because if they were, you'd still prefer to do that at this point. I know everybody wants streaming, and you probably still want like a little piece of streaming, but you don't want it to be the main squeeze if at all possible, because what you want is as much exposure to everybody as you can get. And that is going to limit it a little bit. More and more people are going to streaming. We're definitely headed there, but there are still plenty of people who just watch over the networks, and you'd rather be on CBS, NBC, etc. If given the choice. So yeah, another grenade coming from Andrew Marchand with that one today. The other thing is, here was another quote from him later on. There was if you want to see it, you can go to my Twitter account at JL Kurtz, and you can see the actual clip. But this was a quote from Marshawn in the clip where he's talking about this. He says their problem is the Big 12 is now talking to ESPN and Fox, and if they were to do a deal earlier, then I don't know where that would leave the Pac-12. So Marshawn actually gave voice to, what if the Big 12 comes in and gets a deal done before the Pac-12, which is not something I have seen anybody else legitimately talk about. You know, I mean, that's how long have we heard that talking point from Pac-12 country that, look, the Pac-12 is coming to market before the Big 12. That's a huge advantage. They have Pac-12 After Dark, and they have the fact that they are next up, that they're going to be first at the negotiating table here. It's been that over and over and over again. Okay. And so if that gets removed and the Big 12 comes in and swoops in before them, then what happens? Now, again, I would say, if I'm going to play devil's advocate there, it seems like the Pac-12 is mostly just interested in Amazon anyway. So ESPN and Fox don't seem to be major players with the Pac-12 right now. Maybe it wouldn't really matter all that much. And maybe the Pac-12 just says, whatever, screw you guys, we're going with Amazon anyway. But that was someone giving voice to a theory that I had not really heard much about, or at least legitimate talk about, that the Big 12 could like rush to the altar and get there first, get there before the Pac-12. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Daniel says, you forgot to mention on Sunday, TCU beat those donkeys in Dallas and brought the iron skillet home, hoping to shock people on Saturday. Go Frogs. Well, Daniel, I appreciate you saying that. Much love to TCU there. I think I got in just a little bit. I want to say that I said something at least about Max Duggan, because that's been the most surprising thing to me about TCU's season so far this year, is the year that he is having. I mean, Max Duggan has been pretty darn good. I thought when Chandler Morris went down, TCU would be in real trouble. I've never been that high on Duggan, but he looks like he is much better this year, and seems to be playing some pretty consistent good football. TCU has every chance to win. Would it shock people if TCU won at home against Oklahoma, with the Sooners coming off that loss to K-State, not playing real well against Kent State a couple of weeks ago? Oklahoma has not exactly been flawless so far this year, and TCU has been just flying under the radar. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what to make of them because of the level of competition that they played so far this year. But I certainly have respect for TCU and definitely think they could win that game. I mean, no doubt, I think TCU could win that game against Oklahoma. So, yeah, and shout out to winning the rivalry game. I had caught Sonny Dykes walking off the field and like waving goodbye to some of the fans that were there. You know, some naysayers, some old fans there that were cheering for Sonny Dykes last year, and he got a water bottle thrown at him. So I saw some of the aftermath of that game. TCU's defense still concerns me, Daniel. I think that's the thing. You know, they jumped out to a big lead and then let SMU put a lot of offense on them. That would be my real concern there. But the offense looks better than I would have thought based on the situation right now. Patrick, what's up, Patrick? Thank you for the donation. Don't see a question or comment attached there. So if I'm missing something, I apologize, Patrick, but I do not see anything. But thank you for supporting the channel. Much love. Thank you very much. K-Do says Big Ten Tier 2 is about 60 to 75% of future Pac Tier 1. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there was an actual dollar figure thrown out for the second time by Dennis Dodd in this piece today. So let me dig that up. It was the expected, what the industry expects the Pac-12 to actually net. It says industry sources value a 10-team Pac-12 at $21 million to $30 million per school annually after the loss of USC and UCLA. Industry sources value a 10-team Pac-12 at $21 million to $30 million per school annually after the loss of USC and UCLA. Yeah, so that's not a great number. If it were on the high end there and it's 30, it's not terrible, and it may be still very much in the neighborhood of what the Big 12 gets. If it's 21, that's going to be a real issue. And yeah, I mean, the Big Ten is just kicking everybody else's what with their TV deal. But Dodd has been steadfast in saying like that's the value of the Pac-12. Now, I think some of the numbers and figures that we saw from the Dennis Dodds of the world last year about the Big 12 turned out to be a little too doom and gloom. So I still think that is possible. And especially, again, if you're going with Amazon, they're probably going to overpay and bring some of that up. So I would think that like a 21 to 30 valuation is probably more like when they say ESPN and Fox are hundreds of millions of dollars apart from the Pac-12, it's probably because that's more along the lines of what they're offering is 21 to 30 million per school. And the Pac-12 is probably saying, well, we need that more like 35, 40, as opposed to 25, 30. And thus you wind up being hundreds of millions of dollars apart when you extrapolate that out over the course of a TV contract. So I would guess that is more of what he is saying, and that Amazon's just going to be a total wild card in this because nobody knows exactly how far they would go in terms of what they would pay to the Pac-12 here. Marco, what's up, Marco? Marco says a lot of rank speculation, but immensely fascinating nonetheless. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's basically how I feel about it. I'm not sitting here telling you that anything is happening right away. I'm not sitting here saying that I think even like interpreting Dennis Dodd to be saying anything's happening right away. But it's much more just like, hey, the door is still open. And that's been the whole steady stream of news ever since UCLA and USC left. It's just always been like, well, the Big Ten's not going to totally shut this door. Big Ten Media Days, I guess, is really when that kicked back into high gear when Kevin Warren's comments left the door open publicly. And now that's just what we continue to hear. So we continue to get these stories about why the door is cracked open and that you shouldn't turn your back. I mean, it's basically just like a warning to the Pac-12, like, don't turn your back. You guys are still very much at peril here. So, yeah, I'm with you, Marco. I think that's a pretty good summation of the situation. Calico Willie. What's up, Calico Willie? Checking in again. Calico Willie says Texas Tech against K-State should be big noon kick, first Big 12 game. Look, it's disappointing that it's on ESPN Plus. I wish that it weren't. But, I mean, there are, if we're talking about games in the Big 12, I mean, Oklahoma State Baylor is far and away the best game in the Big 12 this week. Iowa State and Kansas, because Kansas is such a story, I can understand why that would get higher billing. Oklahoma's Oklahoma, and going to TCU is still a pretty intriguing game. So I understand why that would be there too. It's a tough week in terms of competition for the Big 12, but does Texas Tech and K-State deserve better than ESPN Plus? Probably so. Probably so. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew says, glad you're doing well on YouTube, man. Forgot you're a K-State fan. You worried about Tech at all this weekend? I'm a Tech fan. We Tech fans haven't had much to be excited about lately. Yeah, well, hey, what's up, Matthew? Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the donation, man. Yeah, so am I worried at all about Texas Tech? I mean, look, my squad lost to Tulane about 11 days ago. Yes, yes, I am worried about Texas Tech. They are definitely a step or two or three above Tulane. The thing that impresses me about Texas Tech is just how gritty and tough and battle-tested they are. I mean, and just gutsy. Like, it's just all guts right now from Joey McGuire, who went out there and went for it 8 times on 4th down on Saturday and converted 6 of them with Donovan Smith, who's another gutsy guy, like a really gutsy dude. This team now has played multiple overtime games. They've won both of those, and they've gone on the road to face a top 15 team in NC State, and the defense really held down a great offensive attack, or certainly kept them at bay. Did enough to win the game, right? I would say the defense did enough to win the game at NC State. They did not, unfortunately, get help enough from the offense. So, yeah, I mean, Texas Tech more than capable of winning this game. It feels to me fairly toss-up-y, even though the line's out at 8. That feels high to me. I would think it would be more like 5 or 6, where you'd say, like, hey, on a neutral field, K-State's field goal favorite right now. I mean, honestly, I feel like we have a better picture of what Tech is. Improving defensively, some limitations offensively because of the erratic nature at times of Donovan Smith, but tougher. And we've seen them play through difficult situations a couple of times and come out on top. Meanwhile, K-State, it's been defense really good, but the offense really bad, except for one game where it was really good. I mean, the offense was pretty bad the first 3 weeks of the season, dreadful against Tulane, and then they throw 500 on a Brent Venables defense in Norman. So it's really hard to know what exactly K-State is. But yeah, I think I keep using the word intriguing, but another incredibly intriguing matchup in Manhattan. I don't think this is my older brother's Texas Tech. I don't have an older brother, but you get the saying, right? I don't think this is the Texas Tech of last year. I don't think this is the Texas Tech of a couple of years ago. I mean, I definitely don't think it's the Tech of last year that I don't know how. I still don't really understand how they lost the game to K-State in Lubbock that they did, but they found a way. They found a way to lose that game when they really should not have. I think you're going to have to go earn it much more than K-State really did last year in Lubbock. So thank you for the donation. Thank you for being here, and looking forward to the game this weekend. Definitely looking forward to it. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. I know someone asked me that earlier this week. I've got a work event that I have to be at Saturday, like early evening in Manhattan or in Kansas City. So I was not going to be able to make the trip up for the game this week, unfortunately. But man, I'm working on Ames here. We may have a little trip next weekend to Ames to watch K-State and Iowa State. We'll see. Zach, what's up, Zach? Thank you for the donation. Zach says, breaking, the Pac-12 has signed a streaming deal where their fans can now watch the games on those TV screens on gas pumps as they fill up their cars. That's pretty good, Zach. That's pretty good. That's solid. I always wonder, to me, it's like, I feel like it's the Weather Channel most of the time when I see those at the gas pumps, or, just a series of commercials or whatever. It's either commercials or it's a guy doing the weather. And I can't remember if it's actually the Weather Channel or not. So maybe the Weather Channel has some deal there. Maybe that's what the Pac-12 needs. Maybe they just need to link up with the Weather Channel, and that's how they can do their next TV deal. Forget Amazon. We'll just go out there and get the Weather Channel and throw it on the gas pumps, and that's how people can watch the Pac-12. I mean, honestly, I remember last year there was that it was UCLA Fresno. I think there was an overtime game and nobody could see it because it was on the Pac-12 network. I would have had a better chance of watching that game if it were actually on a gas pump. I could drive to a gas pump and watch it. I'm not going to be able to pick up the Pac-12 network, which has been a disaster and horribly distributed and all of those things, right? So to that end, that may not be the worst idea. You may be onto something a little bit there. You actually might be. Boom to the Sooner. What's up, Boom to the Sooner? Thank you for coming back. Thank you for showing up. I hope you're back on your feet after a rough one on Saturday. Boom to the Sooner. I always respect you and appreciate you being here. It says, if the Pac-12 dies, in your opinion, what is the best case scenario for the Big 12 after the Pac-12 disappears? The best case scenario is that the Big 12 becomes the best of the rest conference, and that the Big 12 scoops up not only the four corner schools from the Pac-12, but then also can go out there and get ACC schools if and when that were to happen. I guess maybe the best case scenario then is that the Pac-12 blowing up and the Big Ten conceivably in this scenario going out and taking those schools from the Pac-12 puts a little bit of urgency in the SEC, and they're going to say, well, to hell with this grant of rights thing. We'll figure it out in court. We're going to go take Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and whoever else, North Carolina. And then the ACC is going to maybe blow up, and then you'll be able to pick off some schools from there. I think getting down that road, that's the ultimate best case scenario here for the Big 12. You just want to be number 3. You're trying to jockey for position to be number 3, and you're obviously knocking out a big level of competition there with the Pac-12. If they die, the ACC would be up next. David, what's up, David? Just showing some support. Well, thank you, my friend. Says, I've been catching the last few on replay. Much respect to your work. Go Cyclones and RIP Coolio. RIP Coolio? Wait, did Coolio die? Is that a breaking news thing that I missed? Coolio dies at 59. Wow. Man. Boy, you just blew my mind there, David. Yes, rest in peace, Coolio, man. Gangster's Paradise. Wow. All right. Boy, I'm going to have to gather myself after that. That sucks. Well, thank you for making me aware of that, and thank you for showing support to the channel, man. I appreciate it. And we can have some fun next week. I hope David, you're able to show up next week when we got Farmageddon, man. K-State, Iowa State coming up in Ames next week. That should be very, very fun. Calico Willie, what's up? Calico Willie says, I know the Texas Tech K-State game is going to be tough. I'm just glad we don't have to worry about Columbia coming out on the field this year. He gave us fits. Yeah, I mean, I was having that conversation. I think it was on my podcast, Three Mom, my K-State centric podcast earlier this week, where I was like, K-State has won a bunch in a row against Texas Tech going back. It was 2015, I think was the last time they lost, and that was with Mahomes in Lubbock. So, I feel like I can cut K-State a little bit of slack for that. But the last 2 years, I'm like, man, it was 25-24 last year, again in a game that K-State really probably shouldn't have won. And then the year before was Skylar Thompson gets knocked out by Rico Jeffers. Will Howard's in the game, and it took the late angle route pass to Deuce Vaughn to seal it up and win the game. It was a close game that went down to the wire. So they've been good battles the last 2 years, even as Tech was on the way down with Matt Wells. So I very much anticipate a pretty close game. And um, I also think Joey McGuire is going to do everything he can to come out and be aggressive. Like, I think a fast start's pretty important for K-State, because I think Joey McGuire is going to come out and try to be really aggressive and take things by storm early on. He's got a brazenness to him, man. He's brash, and it certainly seems to be rubbing off on his team. StatCat19, what's up, StatCat? Thank you for the support. Thank you for the donation. StatCat says, hey, John, great win last week for K-State. Love seeing the door hit OU and Texas on the way out. Amen to that. Maybe the Sooners come to Provo in 2023 and see BYU improving to 3-0 all time against Oklahoma. Go Cougs. Would love to see it. Would absolutely love to see it. And it does seem to be, well, I guess I don't know if the game will be at BYU, but it does seem to be trending towards, obviously, Oklahoma and Texas playing next year in the Big 12, having a 14-team league for a year, and you guys all getting a crack at it there. So appreciate the love, and I also can very much get behind BYU and BYU fans feeling the same way we all do and saying, like, hey, man, screw Texas and Oklahoma. Like, that's if I have done nothing else with this channel but gotten you on board with that, then my work here is done. You know, I'm just ingratiating the new Big 12 members to how the people here feel. And I know how all you guys feel outside of the scattered Texas and Oklahoma people that we have in here. I know how most of you feel. So, yeah, not much love lost. Not much love lost in Lubbock either. I guess we could mention, I know Tech fans, you won't like this, but hey, Gambling Gauchos threw out the 98 A&M thing earlier this week. So I will have to mention the Big 12 did announce a public reprimand and fine of Texas Tech, a $50,000 fine for the field storming incident. That's what the Big 12 calls it, a field storming incident. There was a fan who shoved a Texas player. And then there was another video where, like, a Texas player got shoved into a Texas Tech fan. So there were a couple of things from there. And look, I'm not like advocating for that. You certainly hate to see it. I really just hated to see like the Twitter battle and everybody like kind of getting down in the mud on Monday. But you know, it sucks that something like that has to happen. But what, you know, it's a public reprimand and a fine. It's not really that big of a deal. K-State went through the same thing when they beat Kansas in basketball, and shoot, that probably we're looking at like maybe 2015, 16, something like that. Yeah, Jamari Traylor took a little elbow from a fan. Same sort of deal happened at K-State. So anyway, I will mention that. But yes, thank you, StatCat. Thank you, StatCat, for the donation. Thank you for hopping on board, and I appreciate you, my friend. Our web says, if you go to Ames, the bridge and water are awesome. Well, our web introduced me to, well, I knew, I was aware of the corny Ames video that existed, but I had not actually taken the time to watch it until our web threw it into my DMs earlier this week. So I appreciate him for that. And I got a chance to see it. And boy, in all of its glory, was it not great. Pretty corny stuff from, I don't know if that's like the Ames Chamber of Commerce or what, but I'm just going to say this. Maybe I should save this for next week. No, you know what? I'll save it for next week. There's a tease. You guys have to wait until next week. And by the way, as I say that, I've got to hop off here real soon and do the old Gambling Gauchos podcast. So if you guys want that content, make sure and check out the Gambling Gauchos podcast when it comes out. Make sure and follow those guys on Twitter as well, because they are excellent. But because of that, I'm giving you like a 3 or 4 minute warning here. So if you have a question or comment you want to get in, now is the time to do it with a donation, because I'm going to have to hop off a little earlier than I normally would tonight. Hit me up. The $sign below the chat box where it says say something is how you do that to get a donation in here before the final buzzer. Speak now or forever hold your peace. If you're watching this taped, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. Another way that you can support as well. And if you would like the video, I would much appreciate that as well. That does not cost you a dime if you just like the video. Alan, what's up, Alan? Alan says, John, great show. 59 days until the Sunflower Showdown. See you at the tailgate. Will the Big 12 title game, or at least will be the Big 12 title game, or at least a great party? Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Alan. Well, Alan, I will be there. I will be at the game. I think I mentioned this last time. I'll be working the Jumbotron in-game updates. At least I'm scheduled to right now for the K-State KU game in Lawrence. Or in Manhattan. I will definitely be there. And would love to say hey. Would absolutely love to say hey. you got a big one this week, Alan. You got a big one this week with Iowa State. If Kansas wins that, I mean, boy, there are back-to-back pretty winnable games that would appear for Kansas right now with Iowa State. And then I think it's TCU at home next week for Kansas too, right? Let me double check this. Just make sure I'm correct with that. Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. Oh, that's next Friday. Next Friday, TCU at Kansas. Okay. So a nice little run of home games here where I know Kansas feels like I'm sure they have to capitalize on this sort of momentum right now to get big home crowds, and they're doing so far. So yeah, hey, would love it. I saw somewhere on Twitter today there was an article, like a legitimate article that was like, hey, I mean, the Big 12 title runs through the state of Kansas, and I was like, how about that? You know, who was thinking about that at the beginning of the year? Big 12 title running through the state of Kansas with both schools there. But yeah, look, you guys have earned the praise. You guys have earned the praise. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner. If OU and Texas are in the Big 12 next year, do Big 12 teams split TV revenue 14 ways? And if yes, would that make revenue skimpy for a season? So I don't know if the official cut for the new schools has been released or is out there, but typically what happens, Boom to the Sooner, is that it's a reduced percentage that the new schools will get upon entering. I know, for instance, like that happened with TCU in West Virginia. So it will likely be different. And this is maybe something I should have a better answer on for you, but I don't remember seeing like a specific figure laid out there in terms of a percentage cut, like what they're going to get or how little it would be. Like, you know, kind of, it's kind of like becoming fully vested in something. I know company I used to work for, it took like 3 years to be fully vested. It's that kind of a deal. I believe most of the time, commonly when teams are coming into a new conference. But what does that mean for your Sooners exactly in terms of what their payout is going to be? I'm not entirely sure. I'm actually not entirely sure on that one, but that's a very good question. It's a very good question, Boom to the Sooner. I am not smart and or capable enough right now of giving you that answer. So I do apologize for that. I do apologize for that. All right. I just missed my Gambling Gaucho's call, so I'm gonna have to jump off here. Calico Willie, you're gonna get the last word, it appears, my friend. Calico Willie says, rock the chalk right out of here. JKKU is legit. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, obviously the fan in me doesn't like it, but I've got to admit, I mean, they're looking pretty legit right now. Pretty legit. To me, it feels like 8-4 is a very legitimate possibility for Kansas at the moment, which is incredible to think about based on where that program has come. All right, guys, I got to run. Got to jump off early tonight. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you'd like to support the channel. Share it with your friends and family. Share it in Facebook groups, on social media, wherever, to people that you know are fans of your school, fans of the Big 12, or fans of college football. And let's continue to make this an even bigger and better family of Big 12 fans here in a great community. So take care, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.